Sports Reports is ordered is here, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in the building. Mike Wilson, you know me as 2-5, right across from me, Raphael Rutley. Tonight, do we believe in the Kings? Should we take them seriously? Then we're going to get into is Portland wasting Dame Lillard's prime? Kyrie Irving, where do we go from here? And then finally, we're going to cap it off with a Lonzo Ball and then get it off my chest. Raphael, Mr. Rutley, it's been a while. It's been a while. Welcome back.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. Yeah. So, get busy over here in Jersey. But yeah, so we're going to switch it up. Try to still get you guys 2 episodes a week. As you can see, we're starting to do a little bit different here. We got this live with StreamYard. So we're going to be recording these and then post them. But then soon, we're going to be live. People can chime in. I mean, we're doing a lot of things. And that's all because of you guys' input. People following us, commenting, sending us messages, things like that. So, it's all good. It's all good criticism. It's all good love. So as we get better at this, we'll advance our technique and advance display. So thank you everybody for sticking with us through the earliest set. Now we're going to, try to move on a little bit, move on up, George Jefferson style.
Yes. So as usual, like us, rate us, review us, srao23.com. That website is up. You will be getting Facebook invites. You will be getting Instagram invites. Stay in touch with us. Holla at your boys. But Raph, so I've been looking at these NBA standings. The Sacramento Kings are second in the West. So you buying or selling?
I'm going to have to say this. I'm buying it. I mean, I think that right now the 2-7 matchup, it could be any one of these teams fighting for the play-in. Right now, Golden State's sitting at 7. We all know their road record is garbage. And I think the Kings, they're playing with renewed energy. I think Mike Brown's taking the team to the finals. He's been there. So it's like, I think that kind of enthusiasm. They have been in the playoffs since 2006, 17 seasons. Because back in the day, like a lot of people probably don't realize this, the Lakers, Kings, Western Conference battles were aggressive. Like they were aggressive battles. I mean, if it wasn't for Tim Donaghy, you never know what might happen in that series. A lot of that shifted. And when you have teams that are traditionally known to be powerhouses, a lost player here, a lost coach here, it can set you back years. I mean, Rick Adelman, they didn't renew his contract after they lost in 2006. And they said they haven't been back since. And we've seen the litany of coaches that came through there. You had Luke Walton, who was hot for a little bit with Golden State, go down to LA. Then he went up to Sacramento. So he basically took over California with his coaching. It didn't last long. So, I think a young team, they have good scores. They have a big man that can shoot, rebound, pass. I think they believe in each other. I think De'Aaron Fox is a matchup nightmare for any other point guard that has to guard him straight up. So I'm believing in the Kings. What you say?
So, I try to do the numbers thing. There's a lot of numbers that don't favor the Kings. Like, for example, they're 25th in defensive rating. So I don't think you just turn on defense once the playoffs start. I'm trying to fight that bias because even right now in this moment, I'm like, oh, if LeBron comes back, the 7th seed, like, am I really picking the Kings to beat them in a series? Am I picking the Kings over the Warriors if it comes down to that? Maybe because the Warriors can't win on the road 7-29, by the way. Am I picking them over the Clippers? And I'm struggling because the answer to those questions are probably low. But then I came across a beacon of light. All right, you ready for this one?
Let's ready. Let's hit this nugget.
The Kings and the Clippers are the only teams in the West with winning records on the road right now. So that changed my perspective a little bit because, as you've heard me say a couple of times, there should be no team in the West that fears another team in the West. It's just not that kind of West this year. So the Kings should be able to win a series, but I think it's dependent on matchup because, like I mentioned, I'm not picking them over the Warriors. I'm not picking them over the Clippers. It would be a toss up with the Lakers. I would probably pick them today over Dallas, going off of everything we've seen from Dallas lately. Then I was looking at this, and not only do the Kings have a winning road record, but they're 21-13 on the road and 21-14 at home. So if that's not consistency, I don't know what is. They do
Yeah.
have a coach that got to the finals before, so that helps. De'Aaron Fox leads the league in clutch points this season. So, once I found out about the road record, I started leaning a little more towards I believe in them, but I think this is the year that they end up paying their dues. They get got by somebody. And then next year it starts the process.
Yeah, like are they Western Conference Finals bound? Maybe, because all the teams you listed off, Clippers, Lakers, Warriors, they have championship pedigree because you have Kawhi Leonard won a couple of rings. Then you have LeBron, obviously, and AD and the Lakers. They won a ring together. Steph and the Warriors, they have 4 rings. The problem is all of those teams shouldn't be in a position of where they're the lower seed playing against the Kings. So I think we're giving them credit off of cachet, but it's like, yo, they've played the same amount of games as the Kings, and the Kings are, after 70 games, they got 43 wins. The Lakers are highlighting, oh, they were 25-30 before the trade deadline. They've been 10-6 since. It's like they're highlighting the type of numbers that used to be like applause numbers for the Kings, where the Kings are playing like the big dogs. I think sometimes all you need is one hot year. And I think just even if it's like one hot year where you just believe, you got a couple of guys that were, I wouldn't say cast off, you had a couple of journeyman players, you had a couple of guys that were just traded abruptly by the team that drafted them. So you have all these elements. Then you have a guy like Mike Brown. People like essentially wrote Mike Brown off. So he went sat behind Steve Kerr for a little bit, learned a little bit, got a couple of rings. I mean, so and then brought that moxie, right up the street to Sacramento. He didn't have to leave the area. He knows the area well. I think that level of comfort, understanding, okay, what do players do in their off time here? Because like he was coaching in Golden
Mm-hmm.
State, and we can see with Memphis that control of your team. The team has a belief. I mean, they scored 176 points against the Clippers in double overtime. That's normally a triple overtime score. I mean, so that's double overtime. Yeah, granted, it was 176, 175, but to play that long, to play that consistency, and then De'Aaron Fox hits the shot. The defensive plays. I just think that having that young energy with the veteran coach, and then like some of your older vets are still pretty young. Harrison Barnes is probably like the oldest guy on the team. I think they got Matthew Dellavedova on the squad, but they got Kevin Huerter used to play in Atlanta. He probably wasn't getting a lot of shine behind Trey Young, but you come out there, spot up and shoot. Malik Monk was in LA last year, got a taste of like the limelight. Shout out to what's boy, your Wildcat. I just think that sometimes, man, you just need a belief. You need to believe in the system, and then they're seeing the results. It's not like, oh, we're gonna turn this around, and they're 27-43, and it's a better record than previous years, and it's like, nah, but these dudes really turned it around. And then you got a star. De'Aaron Fox is a star, and sometimes that's the difference. We know Steph is a star in Golden State. We know what he can do, but has their time come to where it's like, listen, these torches, they got to get passed. They got to get past. I know everyone's looking at the Lakers at 10, maybe getting up, but if they're at 10, I mean they're at 10 in March. I mean, like it's a long season to show like, hey, either you are one of these top 5 teams in your conference or you're not. You don't just sneak in March. I mean, I don't know how many teams have snuck in. I mean, the play-in is rather young, but I don't know how many teams snuck in from 9-7 in previous years and went on a run. I know we got Golden State when they beat Dallas back in the day when the 8 beat the 1, and then you had Denver, I think, beat Seattle way back in the day when it was like a 5-game series in the first round. It was best of 5. but it rarely happens. Teams gel early in the season, and then it pays dividends in these late games where you win 176 to 175. It pays when your best player is also young, but he's leading in clutch points. Like that's when you start all that in October, November, and it builds. These other teams think they can just bring in pieces and just ramp up, i.e., Phoenix end up with Kevin Durant. Like, do you really think that like, oh, he's gonna play 3 games, miss 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury? Like, if you miss 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle, it's like how bad was that ankle injury? Because like, they haven't really, no one's really talked about it. Everyone just talked about it like it's like, oh, just kind of laissez faire. Like, oh, he's gonna miss 4 to 6 weeks. He's gonna be ready for the playoffs. How? I get that these guys are prime athletes, but in the same sense, it's like, how are you just expecting this guy just to just ramp it back up with a new team? Game 4 of them playing together is game 1 of their first round of the playoffs. So I think Sacramento's togetherness, the youth, the tenacity, and the fact that people probably aren't believing in them. Like this is probably the first topic that first time all year the Kings have led a national show. Granted, we're a small national show, but it's probably the first time all
Mhm.
year.
Well,
So
it's one of those things where if Mike D'Antoni was the Kings coach, I may be able to turn the blind eye to those defensive statistics. But Mike Brown is the coach and defense is his calling card. So not only are they with the defensive rating, like I mentioned, they are they give up tons of points in the paint. They're 28th against giving up points in the paint. And as far as the Lakers go, to your earlier point about 10 seed right now, all that, we also have to factor in that their stars missed a lot of games. So it's not as if LeBron and AD were together the whole season and this is their record. And I mean, they're still sitting out Anthony Davis at this point in the season because they're just trying to keep the bubble wrap on him. But the
yeah,
playoffs, of course, I don't have to tell you, the playoffs are a different animal. Like I remember back when LeBron was in Miami, there was a year where the Bulls beat them 4 times in the regular season. That didn't matter once the playoffs came. So I think that there's something to only the inexperience, but looking at their big man, for example, Domantas Sabonis has been having an awesome year. He's probably the third best center in the league right now after Embiid and Jokic, whatever order you want to put them in. I'll put Embiid over Jokic, but I'm just saying.
yeah,
With that being said, there's a certain element here that he's more rich than Embiid because Embiid, I would still fear going to the paint and trying to get to the basket. Jokic, I don't have that fear. And with DeMontes, I don't have that fear. So teams are still going to be able to get to the basket at will against the Sacramento Kings. And, teams throughout NBA history have paid their dues, whether it was Michael Jordan having to go through Boston, having to go through the Pistons. Now, granted, we don't have any of those teams in the West this year, but it's hard for a new Jack to just come through and take over the block right away like that.
yeah. But it's easy for a new Jack if all the old Jacks run around like they need Jacks for spare tires. Because think about it,
Well,
every top team in the West. Okay, you got Jokic. Jokic is MVP front runner, or at least he's second or third. Depends, first or second depends on who you talk to. You have LeBron and AD. AD doesn't play back to backs. LeBron's coming off injury. They weren't really playing that great together, just like last year and the previous year. So this idea that they just gel, like they haven't played well in 3 seasons together when they're healthy. They haven't. So it's like you expect them just to come back from injury, and then AD is still on essentially a pitch count. How you expect them to just gel? And I get LeBron. Like
well,
LeBron is is a dominant player, but everybody else's role switches when he comes back. Does he have enough time to figure out? All right, how do I play with D'Angelo Russell? Does the ball move out of his hand when LeBron? Does LeBron keep the ball too long? Does he keep it 3 or 4 seconds longer in the shot clock than necessary? Who's going to tell him not to? I mean, so it's just like all of those elements. I'm not saying LeBron's going to mess up the flow, but then you have
mhm.
like KD. When KD comes back, what does his insertion to the lineup for the Suns do for against Sacramento? Okay, so Aiden, they don't get a ball to Aiden on the block at all. It's like probably some lobs, maybe a couple of Chris Paul dishing the ball off if he gets some dunks, but not a lot of the stuff goes to the paint. A lot of these guys are shooting mid-range jumpers. So if you want to try to run a sprint with De'Aaron Fox, go ahead, have at it.
I think that's the issue though, because it's not necessarily about those teams. When I say that, I'm looking at things. So when you do have these new jacks come through and take over the block like that, they usually got a Jason Tatum with them. They usually have a Jimmy Butler with them. Something along those lines, not necessarily a top 5 superstar per se, but the Kings don't have that at all. So, there's
They have
usually
De'Aaron
somebody.
Fox. I think
They
this is. I
do,
think
but
this is coming out moment. I
I
think
hope
'cause
so.
that's what I'm
I hope
saying.
I hope you're
You
right.
have to have that moment. You have to have the regular season to get to the postseason. And if you have this kind of regular season when you've never had one before, it's normally a high. You get a guy like Embiid who has dominant regular seasons, Jokic dominant regular seasons. Chris Paul has been great at managing his team in the regular season. That's the expectation. So anything that
Mhm.
happens in the playoffs, like we talk about this with Steph, him not only having one Finals MVP, it's like, well, the year that Iguodala won it, Steph, all of his numbers went up, but everyone was expecting him to be like great, and they didn't recognize that his numbers still went up. Whereas De'Aaron Fox, like I said, no one's really believing that this team can make any damage. So they're playing with house money. So if they go out in the first round to Golden State, cool. The defending champs got healthy at the right time. They gelled at the right time. The Kings, this wasn't their year. If they go out and they win the first round, it's like, wow, look what they've done now, and they lose in the second round. Yeah, what if they add a piece? Because there's always a guy that feels like they are the missing piece, some free agent. So they
Mhm.
come play in Sacramento. So I think this is the year for them to have that because no matter how you want to slice it, a lot of these other stars in the West are over 30. Pretty much all of them.
But that goes to a bigger point. Some of these dudes, it's their last hurrah. Like, so for example, let's say the Clippers go out in the first round to whoever they play. It doesn't even have to be the Kings, but the Clippers in the first round. Is it time to break up Paul George and Kawhi? If Golden State goes out in the first round, is it time for Draymond to go to greener pastures? Is it time to move Jordan Poole to a bigger role? Even though I feel he's taken a step back this season. So those are the type of questions that those teams are facing. Like Sacramento has the advantage. I say the advantage of inexperience because they haven't been here before and they don't know what they don't know.
Ignorance is bliss,
You
man.
Ignorance is
Ignorance is
bliss. But
bliss.
but like you said, but like I said, these other teams are playing with their windows closing. You know what I mean? Not necessarily the Lakers. Let's forget about them for a sec. But like I mentioned, the Paul George Kawhi thing, is that experiment over if they go out in the first round this year?
But it
Is
never
Golden State?
worked.
No, I
Like
know
that.
that,
That's the
but that's
thing.
the
It's
point.
never
That's the
worked.
point. Is this the end? Yeah. Are we at the end of the road? You know what I mean? That's the question, and I think we should be. Because I saw them
I
go.
think that kind of pressure, I think that kind of pressure on these teams that haven't succeeded to the level that their free agent signings and the hoopla and the commercials and the shoe deals and all that stuff had them ascended to. Everyone literally he had a commercial saying he was the king of LA and hadn't done anything past April since he's got there, other than
So
go
do you?
home.
So for what you're saying, so from everything that we're talking about right now, do you trust Sacramento more than you trust Denver?
I say Denver more because Denver's the number one seed. They have their best player is the catalyst. He sets the table. Like we talked about Jokic's numbers. I think people try to downplay his points because I think he's hitting around 25 points a game. But those 11, 10 to 11 assists, that's getting you between 20 and 30 points on
Mhm.
top of his 25. So he's getting you anywhere from 45 to 55 points by just being on the floor.
So
His
if when
defensive rebounding. So I think he has a greater impact, and I think the team feeds off of him the same way I think Sacramento feeds off of the youth of their players and the experience of their coach. I think Denver feeds off the versatility of their best players. So I think that 1-2 matchup, if it makes the Western Conference Finals, I think it'd be dope. I think I'm more excited about seeing teams like that perform versus running it back and hoping that these other teams that been throwing these teams together with free agents
So
make it work.
when Ja comes, you trust Sacramento more than Memphis?
Yeah, because this granted this is all rumor when everything came out, but if you think about the picture that got leaked of Ja in a strip club, it's $50,000 in ones on the floor, no teammates, no
Hmm.
friends, no teammates, just that kind of isolation. I think it might rub people the wrong way. They said a lot of his teammates don't hang out on the road. He's going out with his entourage, but not his teammates. Is another thing that give credit to Colin Cowherd. He asked this question. I forgot who he was talking to. It was a conversation maybe like 3 weeks ago, and he said, "Golden State's bad on the road. Do you think the punch between Draymond and Jordan Poole in the preseason has kind of ruined the road bonding? Like, do they not hang out? And that's why they don't really, if you're sitting in a hotel hanging out or you're sitting at dinner, you can go over stuff, just have conversations like, yo, listen, on that pick and roll, you could do this. Or man, that guy can't guard you. And you can just sit there at this table and hype this guy up to the point where you go to the game the next day and he's feeling it. But if you don't trust each other, it's different. But on at home, you get the calls at home, you get the momentum at home, you get the crowd at home. I think you can
What
kind of
about
just
that
be galvanized by
Draymond?
all of that.
What about that Draymond push on Kaminga?
Listen, that was a shove. I would have thought somebody was trying to punch me too. He shoved him with both hands.
But no, I do think that having the 2 seed is important for Sacramento because if you're going to have youth, it's great to have home advantage as well, because really all you have to do is hold serve until you get to the Western Conference Finals, and then by then, if you end up matching up with Denver, hope you've learned enough on the road in the first 2 rounds to play better and potentially beat Denver. But if Denver gets knocked out by body, which is not off the table, and you get to the Western Conference Finals, you could end up hosting that at home too. So I think the Kings are
Yeah.
a byproduct of the West. So I don't know where to place them just because of how awful the West has been this year. Like I said, them and the Clippers are the only 2 teams with winning road records. I mean, Denver's 18-18, so maybe they with a winning road record once they get their stuff together
Yeah.
to close out the season. But so like I say, I take them seriously just by default, but I think there's a whole lot that is going against them as a team. It's just the fact that no one else is there. Because like even going back to your point, even though you brought up the point about teams gelling. So, even if KD comes back and for whatever reason Phoenix falls to the 7, I don't know if I'm picking Sacramento over Phoenix in a 7-game series. We saw, even though it was a very, very, very small sample size, that seems to be what Kevin Durant is into these days. Easy money snipe out, but
Yeah.
like, am I expecting the Kings to beat Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeMontis to stop hating on getting lobs whenever he wants, so
Yeah, you
that's
should.
where it's, maybe I
I
should, but
think
I
you
just don't.
should.
Maybe
I
I,
think
I
you
just
should. I
don't.
think I think you should because I think the season for the teams out west it's a microcosm of how they approach the regular season. I think a lot of these guys think it's the same the old story we all heard of, the old fable, the tortoise and the hare. I think a lot of these teams just over the past few years, some teams have been successful kind of disregarding the regular season.
Mhm.
Playing slow, taking nights off. We're not gonna play everybody against Charlotte. We'll play a couple guys against Detroit. We're not gonna play everyone against Houston. These little moves here and there. I don't think Darren Fox is taking nights off to rest. And if you keep the 2 seed, you're getting a team that played in the play-in. So you
Mhm.
might get a team you might get the Timberwolves. They knocked the Warriors out.
Oh, I'm
Just
picking
somebody gets hot.
Sacramento over the Timberwolves.
You know what I'm saying? So you get the team that goes from 9 to 7. Right now you got the Thunder at 8. That's in the
Mhm.
play-in. So you got the Thunder, Lakers. I mean, like I want to believe in the Lakers because they have LeBron, they have AD. But if they have an off night, if AD gets 12 points and 6 rebounds one night, and SGA goes off for 38, and they lose.
Hey, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, we were talking about give me my Warriors Sun matchup, KD against the Warriors. From Kentucky standpoint, I would love Sacramento against OKC, De'Aaron Fox against SGA. Sign me up today. I'm picking Sacramento in that series, but I'm just saying sign me up. But
You
but
still
I
get
think
you get your cat. You can get Timberwolves up to 7. You get your Karl Anthony Towns versus De'Aaron Fox. They'll have John
no, Carl
Calipari sitting
Anthony.
courtside.
I'm good on
It'll be
Carl
great.
Anthony Towns. Minnesota can move
Listen,
on from him for all I care.
listen. So I said I think the West. I know we're in the era of the NCAA tournament, and like I picked a lot of chalk games. I picked 2 over 7. I picked the 3 over the 14. I did all of that,
Furman,
and it just
baby.
surprises you. It surprises you. Oh my god, I can't believe he threw the ball away like that. But it surprises you. But in the NBA, the 2 seed is a 2 seed for a reason. Because we remember this a couple years ago. Lakers were 7 seed. Phoenix was 2. I think the Lakers went up 2-1 on Phoenix, and LeBron was out there front running. That's my dude. But when he's on, he was doing like the thing, and everybody on the sideline was doing a little pump fake, and then end up losing the series. And then Booker was talking cash trash to him, and then Crowder was doing a little thing. You, it's a reason one team is a 2 seed and another team's a 7. No matter who you have on there, if you have better players historically and you're still the 7 seed, that means the team that's at 2 is that much better than you. And I know it's only like a 5 game gap, 6 game gap, but that's huge. That's huge at this
Mhm.
point of the year because
Yeah,
you
what
can't
would
make
that
it up.
gap be if everybody played?
You never know. If
Load
every like,
managed.
granted, if this was like a video game 2K and everybody was healthy, of course, I have the Lakers up top. I'd have KD still will be in Brooklyn. I mean, like it would all make sense. But when all these trades happen, all these moves happen,
Mhm.
the teams that stayed pat, that had it all locked in, were already locked in. So, like I
I'm
said,
afraid that Sabonis is going to become Jokic, and that teams are going to target him, and he's just going to end up in a lot of foul trouble. That's the main concern that I have. Like because I know Malik Monk is going to give you 3 for 13, but I also know that there's going to be a 9 for 12 in there somewhere as well.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Get this
so
played out.
from that standpoint, I support the Kings, even though I don't necessarily think that they're going to make the Western Conference Finals or anything like that. I think they'll have a good showing, and I'm pulling for them. I would love to see the Kings in the Western Conference Finals, and heck, even make the NBA Finals. I'm all. I think the NBA, like, we do the whole thing where it's like, if the Knicks are good, that's good for the sport.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think a team like Sacramento finals would be good for the NBA. Maybe not from a rating standpoint because you're going to have your superstar snobs that don't want anything to do with Sacramento in the finals. But I think it would be great because throughout the history of the NBA, all we've seen is the same teams dominate for a decade or during a decade. So it would be nice to see some new blood. But, so with that being said, let's wrap that one up and let's get to Dame Lillard because, this is interview with JJ Redick, talking about the championships and how everybody's put the championship or bust mentality out in the universe. But with that being said, is Portland wasting Damian's prime?
Absolutely. It's bad. It's bad how poorly they. I think NBA has a blueprint. I think they have a simple blueprint. You match a coach with the player, your best player style, and then you build around that. You marry the two of those pieces, and you can win for years. We've seen it with Phil Jackson has 11 rings because you had Jordan, Phil, You got Pippen in to you just built your team around needs and what people did very, very, very well from their position. Pippen didn't score a lot of points. I think his career average is somewhere around like 17-9, 18-9, somewhere in that range. But he defended the other team's best player. He was the original wing player, the guy that people want Kawhi and Paul George and his other 6'9" wing defenders to be. He was out there handling the other team's best guard. And back in the 90s, most of your best guards were like 6'4", 6'5". Jordan's only 6'6". So even in, I think, in a matchup Pippen versus Jordan, I think Pippen would have been the guy guarding Jordan. So you marry the coach with your best player, and then you build around that. They could never get that piece right. You have a small guard, Steph, like Steph Curry, Dame, Trey Young. You have a blueprint of what works and what doesn't. And I don't think Portland ever really bought into, let's look around and see, okay, what is everybody else doing who has small guards that's winning? What did Golden State do? Yes, they drafted well. Draymond turned out to be such a Swiss Army knife. Klay Thompson's shooting is so pure, but they had the guys that came off the bench shot the three just as well as Steph and Klay did. So when they brought Barbosa and Harrison Barnes and guys like that, and their free agents did the same thing. It's like, listen, I'm gonna bring in a guy. If I lose CJ McCollum, I need to bring in a guy who could do what CJ did. They traded guys away who can't do what CJ did, and then trade that guy away for a guy who can't do what the guy they traded CJ away to do, and then it just goes downhill. Dame's out here dropping 71 points, but they needed all 71 of those points against Houston. He's getting on TV, and I get that people don't like the statement. I heard Skip Bayless say you don't like it because everybody can't win a championship, and I understand that. I'm not saying that his prime he should have won a championship, but the team should have looked at some point 2 or 3 years like you can win something. Like right now, the way we're talking about Sacramento, they look like, hey, they might be able to make some pop. You got to have a team that looks like that every once in a while. You can't always be 13th in the West. You can't always have him be the guy that's getting interviewed about not winning the championship because like everyone sees the talent. You see, he came from a small school, still got drafted in the top 10. I think he's probably 6'2", 6'3". But in that game where he scored 71 points, he was like, listen, he got a dunk. It wasn't just all threes. It's just he plays around the rim. He's ended 2 playoff series with 3-pointers, walk-off 3-pointers. Those should be highlights of his career packaged around a championship run, at least one or two. Everybody's not going to get a run. But his talent and the way the NBA works right now, the way it looks, the way you can build a team, you had the piece. You have the piece there. It's like you got to put the other appropriate chess pieces around and move them accordingly. They out there on the chessboard with checker pieces, wonder why things not working out. So, like I said, with this comment on JJ Redick's podcast, it makes a lot of sense. Me and you talked about this for years. The media has bestowed a championship or bust, and you can't leverage that on multiple players. Like one pundit, Stephen A. Smith, Chris Broussard, Nick Wright, whoever the case may be, you can't be like, "Oh, this is championship or bust for Boston," and then say the same thing about Jokic for the MVP. Is like, what is it? Is it championship or bust for everybody, or is it just, hey, this is how far your team is going to go? Teams don't surprise you and win championships. It rarely happens. The Giants, yeah, they might have football wise, they surprised the Patriots, but they had a mean pass rush. We saw it. If the pass rush gets to the opposing quarterback, you can win a football game. That wasn't a surprise. They both were in the Super Bowl. They went on a nice run. But in basketball, it's pretty simple. If you don't have a star, you're probably going to lose. And if you don't build around your star that you have, it's going to look even worse because you won't be able to keep players because you're not going to have a philosophy to follow. You're going to end up trading players away, i.e., trading Josh Hart when they're warming up, the guy you traded CJ McCollum to get. So I think Portland's wasting his prime. I don't think a championship was necessary, but I do think that you had pieces in place where you can make an impressive run for a few years.
Well, I think what I've always been confused about is why don't free agents want to go there? The same thing, you know, we talked about before, like the year Melo went to the Rockets and got kicked out the league essentially. Why didn't Portland grab him that season? They needed another scorer. Portland did make a Western Conference Finals, and it was one of those years like this year where we were talking about with the Kings, where the West just wasn't, somebody had to get there. They got there, but they didn't build upon that, and the Trailblazers are a proud franchise. So you have like the Blazers, the Spurs, and the Jazz in that, like, before the Spurs started winning titles, they were all in that little tier of they're always solid, always consistent. They just, for whatever reason, couldn't put it together, but won a championship with Bill Walton. Portland came through the years and made 2 NBA Finals, Clyde Drexler. So, so we've seen Portland able to do these things before, and I just don't understand why no one wants to go there. And, that's what makes me scared about Sacramento as well, where you're like, they're one piece of, and I'm like, what's that piece though? Like, they might have to make a trade. They might have to draft somebody and just hit it, because I don't think anybody's necessarily going to willingly go there on their own. But yes, Portland has absolutely wasted Dame Lillard's prime, because for one, they put him in a backcourt with CJ McCollum for a lot of years. And I like both of them, but you just can't win like that. I mean, we saw, what was Golden State supposed to do? Like Steph and Monte Ellis together? These small backcourts just don't work in that way to bring you the ultimate success. So I think Portland should have traded, say, maybe a few years earlier and got a wing. Maybe they could have got somebody like, not even in a trade per se, but they could have courted like Iguodala before he went to Golden State. That might have helped out a little bit somewhat, because right now they went and overpaid for Jeremy Grant. And what does that do? Even when they had Josh Hart, I love Josh Hart. I was a Josh Hart stan when he was at Villanova, but Josh Hart at Villanova greater than NBA Josh Hart. So, I don't know what the end game was. Like this year they drafted Shaedon Sharp, who didn't even play a game of college basketball. He could jump out the gym apparently and he could shoot the lights out, but nobody saw him do it on tape since high school. And that's who they drafted at number 6 or number 7. So
That's
like
management,
realistically,
man. They
I
are
know, and
wasting his talent.
realistically, I don't want to do the hyperbole, but they've been committing malpractice. Like Dame Lillard has every right at this point to walk into the office and say, it's time. It's just time. And then lo and behold, you don't get the good players. So what do? And I don't mean no disrespect at all when I say this, but then you go Chauncey Billups as the coach, who had, no head coaching experience, or, so if you're going to have that type of talent gap where you're just relying on Dame, you at least got to have a coach that can scheme something, because they don't even have players that they just picked up Matisse Thybulle, but they don't have players that could even go out and lock down the other team's best players. So I don't know what their strategy is. It's just like, hey, Dame,
They don't have
you want to
one.
go
It's
average? You want to go average 30 this year? Go do it, man. It's your world.
He's averaging like 40 at home in their last like 8 home games. It's pretty ridiculous. It's just the fact, like I said, I think we operate under this impression that, or you're hired as a GM or you're hired as a team president, that you know what you're doing and that you know how to strategize and you know how to build a team. It's not something that everybody has. You can learn it in management courses, you can learn it in business school, you can have the degrees, but if you aren't intrinsically good at galvanizing people and building a team, then you're going to reach. You're going to reach on your coach, you're going to reach on a trade, you're going to reach on a draft pick. Occasionally you will hit. We all know it's not an exact science. Many GMs, Bill Belichick's not a good GM. His draft picks haven't really panned out. But as a tactician, as a strategist, defensively, he has it on lock. He has that defensive strategy to the point where he can take an average guy and put him in a position where he can make extraordinary plays. Maybe not for years, but the Malcolm Butler interception, like I said, we've gone back and forth, but you put guys in position, even if you're not good at team building, be good at something. And with Portland, it just seems like they're not good at anything as in the realms of support around their star player who has expressed multiple times on multiple platforms for the last 3 or 4 years that I'm staying. So essentially, they give him this contract, and people, we like I said, we talked about this earlier. What he said after the game, he was like, "Yeah, we're basically out of the play-in." And people always want to knock players for giving an honest answer, but then get upset with them when you ask a question and you don't get an honest answer. So it's like, why don't you just take what for what he said? He was like, "Listen, we're fighting for a play-in spot." Is like, at what point do I just say, you know what? I'm just out here playing. I'm just out here hooping. I'm having some fun with my friends, and we're gonna hang out in Portland. I'm gonna go to my car dealerships. I'm gonna go do my charity work that he's been doing in Portland and Oakland, and just realize like, yo, the team isn't going anywhere. And people say, as a competitor, you should. I'm like, no, listen. If the score is 110-77, and you got 2 minutes left, you're not winning that game. There's
Hey,
nothing
you
wrong.
know
So you
what?
know what? Take me out. I'm not.
You
You're
know
not
what?
dropping. You're not dropping 27 points in 2 minutes. Even if they kept, unless they kept throwing you the ball on purpose off the inbounds, you just put up threes. Then maybe you're not making a 27-point comeback. So it's like you're not
and see,
making
and
a
that's
two
where
or
I
three
differ.
game comeback.
That's where I differ. Because right now they're 3 games behind the Pelicans for that last spot. With about 12 games left. You love the game of basketball. Ball is life. You're getting paid multi-millions of dollars. Those fans are still coming out here to see you. Get your ass out on the court. Like
Oh, he said
granted,
he's gonna
you know,
play. He said he's
if
gonna play. It's just a matter of like how hard do you play?
you still
Realistically,
play hard because those people
you
are
play?
paying their money to come see you. So you still give maximum effort.
True.
Like I
And the
don't buy
owner can
any of
sell the
that.
team for 5 billion. So somebody need to tell the owner you need to hire some people who know the hell they're doing because that dude
This
is
is
getting a
true.
lot more money. He's getting a lot more of a cut than that fan money. If a fan buy a ticket for $100, yeah, Dame might be getting three. The owner is
Yeah.
getting 63. Like so
Yeah.
that dude,
But
you
but
need to be turning
but
around
also,
yelling at that guy in the office, like, yo, get somebody out here. Don't be yelling at the dude on the
hey, but
floor.
I
He only
told
getting
you
75 cents of your $200.
I told you about my FanDuel bet. So I ain't got no sympathy when they had 9 days off and then he sat out because the team sat him out
The rest
because they
snow
got on a
plane
plane
thing
late.
was garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
like
terrible.
Dame Lillard has missed 14 games this year. Some of that was, injury related. Some of that was not injury related. So if you're going to miss these games, then I don't want to hear about, oh, how hard do I got to play, or like we're in the last games of the season. Like, because maybe if you wouldn't have had load managed, maybe you wouldn't be 3 games behind the Pelicans. Maybe you'd be with them. Maybe you'd be in front of them. So you can't have it both ways. Like, it can't be we're going to load manage and, well, how do I get fired up for this? Like, you had your chance to be fired up and you chose, or the team chose, for you to sit on the bench or take a day off or whatever the case. Once you do that, you lose the benefit of the argument in my eyes. So, you could have an argument if you played all out and you're like, yo, we just don't got the team to do it. I'm deflated, but the fans piss me off too. Because when, these players move around, KD, LeBron, whoever it might be, they say, oh, I miss the days where a player just played for one team throughout his career. And all I've heard for the last 3 weeks is Dame got to ask out of
Yeah,
there.
you gotta get out of
Yeah, he
there.
better. So what do you
Like I
want?
said,
Do you want loyalty, or do you not want loyalty? If you don't know what you want, then shut up and stop talking.
like I said, we've talked about this before. Fans they like for you to appear like you got out of the mud because that's how everyone views themselves. People don't view themselves as success stories. I saw something earlier today. Neil deGrasse Tyson said he was like, "There's way more people who weren't born than the people who were born. He was like, so the fact that you are like alive and breathing and walking around is like a miraculous thing. So you should view yourself as that. But I think a lot of people view themselves as like grinders and strugglers, and they got out the mud and they didn't have this growing up. And then when you get a guy who just gets dropped into whatever league that he's in, you get your Bryce Harpers, you get your Sidney Crosby's, your Mahomes, your Tom Brady's, your LeBrons, your Dames, these guys who get these big contracts, and you think like, oh man, these guys don't work hard, they make all this money. But then you get a guy that like Peyton Manning. He struggled for all those years. People love him because they feel like it emulates their struggles. Like, oh, he got out of the mud just like me. And that's why fans are so wishy-washy on what they want. They look at Dame as one of those lunch pail, blue collar grinders, all the adjectives you can apply to someone that they deem works hard and is not getting the results. So I think people like that. If LeBron was in Portland and they were in 13, no one would be like, man, LeBron's got to get out of there so he can win a championship. No one would care. If KD got traded to Portland and then Dame said, I'm out, and he was out there by himself, no one would care. But Luca in Dallas, people want Luca to win because I think people like the fact that Luca looks like a grinder. He's not chiseled. He looks like your average tall dude at the park that just plays basketball well.
Yeah,
And I
little
think that's what
doughboy.
fans kind of get that misconstrued. Like, yo, listen, if you just keep your standards simple, I personally don't think every season's championship or bust. I just think like
Well,
if you are one of the elite players at some point in your career for a section of it, a good section of it, you need to be competing for championships to validate your long term success. Because that's what Dame was talking about. I love to play ball. At the end of my career, if I don't have a championship, you're gonna be like, oh, you're not gonna validate my career, all the stuff that I've done, and everything else. And I understand that piece because that's the bulk of the work. That's 82 games. 82
but
games
what
for
has
10
he
years.
done?
But that's the thing. Like, okay, so when he made it to the playoffs, okay, he can't be first team All NBA because he plays out west. It's just too many guys that people like more, and teams that are better constructed. He's gonna lose first team All Pro to Steph for 6 years in a row. He's not gonna
Mhm.
beat him out. And then the next hot guy out west, you have. Let me think. Who else would be first team All? I think he might be third. I think he got like third team All Pro. And then you get something simple as like a guy like Kyrie gets traded from the East to the West. He's killing the East, and halfway through the
But that's
season, he's
and,
traded to
and
the
and I
West.
think that's the
Now I get
point.
knocked down a notch. It's like
And I think
there's
and I think
400
that's the
dudes in the
point.
league. I'm the top four point guard. I'm the top four guard in the NBA of 400 players. I'm 4 or 5.
And
Like
and I think that's the
that's not a
point.
slouching career.
I think that's the point. I was watching First Take a few years ago, and they were talking about some big game that LeBron had, and Stephen A's response was like, "Don't talk to me about what he does in November. Like it's all about June with LeBron James, So, and that's the thing, right? Championship or bust. But there is a certain reality there. So when you have a player like, say, Jason Tatum, I'm gonna just keep picking on Jason Tatum because I don't know if he's better than
You
Jalen
tend to
Brown
do
or
that
not.
a lot. You do
But
that
but
a lot. Yeah,
but yeah. I like Jason Tatum though. That's the thing, because
you pick
everybody,
on him a lot though.
he's the mentality. I'm holding accountable. He's the mama mentality guy. He's texting Kobe. Even rest in peace. Kobe ain't here. He texting Kobe. Everything he do has some kind of semblance of I'm doing this for Kobe. I don't want to let Nas down. But so when he does this, you know what I mean. You're adding that pressure to yourself because you're becoming the Mamba. So like it's easy to say, you know what, Jason Tatum, you got to go win a championship because if you want to treat you like Kobe, you got to do Kobe type things.
But that's the
If I'm looking
thing.
at,
But how is that? How is that realistic? Mathematically,
I
it's
know.
only
Just hold on.
one.
Just stay with me for
You
a
only give it
second.
out
With
one.
me for a second.
Okay.
No, just stay with me for a second. So you know what I mean. So then like if you're Kawhi Leonard, like obviously injuries have played a big role in his career. He has 2 championships. So you know what I mean? So like if you come out to Kawhi and you're like, look, Kawhi, you all George been together for X amount of years or whatever, it's time to get this done. Because he specifically handpicked Paul George to be his running mate. But If you tell me, hey, Kyrie went to Dallas and now it's championship or bust, I'm gonna look at you and say, when was Kyrie ever a top 5 player in the league, top 10 player in the league? So that championship or bust stuff only matters for me to the high echelon of players. Dame Lillard is not in that category from the standpoint of he is a great player, but I've never looked at Dame Lillard and thought he was a top 3 or top 4 player
because
in the league.
his teams are terrible. If you
No, I
flip
get that. I get
if
that.
you flip the records, that's the thing. It's like, okay, this is an argument that we have in basketball that we don't have in baseball. A basketball player, yes, you can play defense and you can play offense, but it's still the individual basketball player stats the same way. If we viewed them the same way we view baseball player stats, then it wouldn't be, oh, you didn't do this for your team. You can't do everything. Even if you're good defensively, Giannis is good defensively. He's great, was great defensively and offensively. He's an anomaly. Most guys aren't great. LeBron used to be great on both ends. Now he's got a little older. Now he's great offensively, and then he's smart defensively. So he times his energy. He'll make a timely block or try to get a steal or something like that. But it's not. If the records were different, if Sacramento was 7 and Portland was 2 with Dame's same stats, but somebody else drops 16 and somebody else can drop 12, and then their center can stay healthy. Now their record's different. Does that make his individual performance different? That's the issue. Is that the fact that his individual performance and the opportunity that he has had, because he knocked James Harden out of the playoffs and he knocked Russ and Paul George out with the shot in front of Paul George, and the Paul George goes
From
in
half
post
court.
game from half time. It's a bad shot. It's a bad shot. Well, Dane was like, listen, if he looked up at the clock and saw it was 4 seconds, he should have started coming out. He didn't. So it's like
It's a bad
I
shot
think
if
that
Paul George would have took that shot.
it was a ballsy shot. I give him that. It was a great shot because it went in. Yes, I get that we're
but
using the
no,
results
but what I'm
to
saying
understand.
is like people are
But
already
if
asking
you
questions. Like people are already asking questions like, is Giannis better than Tim Duncan? You know, people are saying like, is Luka the next LeBron? So there comes a point where, and this is all narrative. This is not me talking. This is just narrative. But there comes a
I hate
point
that
where
word. I hate that word so
I
much.
know
I hate
or rhetoric,
it's not
rhetoric.
you not the way you use it, but the fact that like everybody uses it now, and
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really
let's go with
narrative.
rhetoric. Let's go with rhetoric. I like
Narrative
that
is a
better anyway.
synonym for stuff that the media made up. That's what it is. So I'm gonna
Right,
stop
right. And
saying
that's what I'm
narrative. I'm
saying.
gonna
So
start
that's what
saying so the stuff that the media made up means that he has to do this. That's all it really comes down
exactly.
to. Because statistically,
But that's where the
if
champion
you look at
bust
it, it's not
comes
the same
from.
thing.
That's
It's
where the
what the media
championship or
made
bust
up.
comes from. You know, so like I said, but when you're making these comparisons, or like I said in Jason Tatum's case, he's doing it himself, or Kyrie was doing it himself because he invoked Kobe in all his interviews, and this is why I'm the way I am because Kobe this and Kobe taught me that. So once you say that, and I'm not saying that it's right, I'm not saying that it's right, but people gravitate towards that and go, oh, you're a Kobe disciple. So therefore, you have the onus on you to win championships.
Yeah,
But
but
that's
Vince
not
Carter liked
realistic
Jordan, but no one said that he had to win championships.
because Vince Carter
Vince
was never, Vince Carter was one of those dudes that,
stuff that
he
the
was,
media made up. I
Vince
don't know.
Carter
I'm
was
not gonna
that,
say I'm not gonna say
he
narrative no
was
more.
that
It's
Rasheed
stuff that the
Wallace dude.
media
He was
made up.
that, Vince Carter was that Rasheed Wallace dude where my memories and thoughts of you are better than what you produced.
Rasheed Wallace has a ring, and that's what I'm saying. Is like the ring is a team award, and
Yes.
yes, if you like, for instance, if you put Dame on Golden State and Steph in Portland, I think Golden State can have similar success because they play the same way. Except one guy plays in Portland, and whoever their GM is or whoever their coach is hasn't been as consistent as Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's been there since Mark Jackson got fired. And then the core of the team, the personality of the team, the ethics, the mantra, the mission statement of the team stayed in place when he was injured. He had his bad back. And Luke Walton, I think he coached them. I think they were like either 27-3 or 24-3,
they were like
something like that.
39-3. Like it was crazy.
When Walton, okay, so
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Steve comes back, and then the rest is history. But because they had a team that was built around, we're gonna follow this mantra, and I think that the championship or bust makes it seem like a guy hasn't done anything if he hasn't won a championship. Meanwhile, like I said, he has two playoff series ending buzzer beaters. He took Portland to the Western Conference Finals. He has a 71-point game. He has a ton of 60-point games.
Mm-hmm.
He's an undersized guard per the league standards. Not many guys that are even like close to his height. So I think he's done enough as an individual. If you look at his points, he's probably somewhere around 20,000 points, somewhere in that general range. He's a top 75 top 75 all time,
Well, that's
voted
why
on
all
by
these
whomever.
that's why all these things that the media say,
There we go.
doesn't make sense, because in the same breath, you'll have people like Nick Wright or whoever, or they start asking questions like, how is Jokic be the MVP if he can't make the finals? And I'm stepping back and saying, and this is not a knock, because like you said, it's a team sport, but it's a fact. Embiid hasn't even made a conference final. That's not an insult. It's just a fact of life. Shout out to LA Knight. But I'm just,
Yeah,
but that's where we pick and choose. That's the issue. We don't have this criteria that we say this is what my MVP is. Because we were watching Nick
because
Wright and
we're not operating through truth. We're operating through stuff that people made up, and you're arguing against something that somebody made up. So when you present it with
right.
facts and you hit it with facts, and you either forced to qualify and quantify your statement, you can't.
Well, that's why we were watching the video with Nick Wright and Chris Mannix talking about Jokic winning 3 straight MVPs and all that kind of stuff like that. And Nick Wright kept saying, I don't know what the criteria for MVP is. And that's the problem. There can't be a criteria because we all value different things. So, you can't have, there's not two people that are going to think the exact same thing. Like, even if y'all agree
Yeah,
on main bullet points, there's still, like when we talked about MVP, like I thought that Embiid was, I thought at the time Tatum was MVP. So here I go picking on him again. And then they've
yeah.
since fallen off. But Embiid, to me, was ahead of Jokic from the standpoint of what I was seeing. But my deal breaker was Embiid missed 2 games for me, whereas that didn't necessarily matter to you in the same way. So there is no criteria for
That
MVP.
was this year or last year?
That was this year. Like, you as an MVP, well, last year I didn't have a problem with Jokic winning the MVP. I wouldn't have had a problem if Embiid won it, but I don't think Embiid was necessarily robbed. I think they both deserve MVP and one person got it.
Yeah. Like I said, like you said, there's no criteria for it. There's just these preseason expectations, and then there's season long things that the media makes up as their ulterior ulterior expectations. But none of it, like you can't, you have to be able to apply your logic across all of these players, and
Right.
you can't use playoff success for a regular season
Right.
award. You have to confine your argument. You have to divorce yourself from being emotional and just have a conversation about, like, okay, I think Embiid is MVP because,
Mm-hmm.
not because I
Mm-hmm.
think Jokic can't do something. It's like, okay, this is what Embiid has done, and this is why I think he's MVP. And then back with Dame, I think he's being honest. I think people want honest answers out of athletes. And you have to look at, like, sometimes, I'm gonna shout out Van Wilder's pops. Van Wilder's like, sometimes you got to recognize a bad investment and know when to cut your losses. This year might be a bad energy investment for that team.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm pretty sure he's a loyal guy, Oakland guy. He's not going to just be like, oh, I talked to ownership and they said this, or I don't like Chauncey Billups. I don't think he's going to come out and say that, but I think he's going to look around. Like, James Harden said it in a interview. When he was trying to get his way out of Houston. I don't think we had the talent to win here just to try to force his way out. He showed up out of shape, forced his way out, and then everyone just kind of forgave him because they thought he was going to win a championship. So he was immediately forgiven for quitting on his team, and then they had him in the MVP race because
And oh, by
they
the
they
way, they're the 2 seed right now.
So and that's what they did that because they wanted the story to fit where James Harden, KD, and Kyrie matched up with AD and LeBron and in the finals, and it was going to be like this great thing. We're going to fly to Brooklyn for game 1 and 2, and then we're going to fly to LA. Like everyone had the whole map in their
Uh-huh.
time, like oh June in New York and June, like, and that's the problem when it didn't happen. So like I said, Dame, they are wasting his talent. Um, I hope he stays because I like the parody. Like I said, I don't believe everything's championship or bust, but you know, championship or bust, you got a guy like the flat earther. What he's talking about, I'm in
Hey,
Dallas
watch,
now.
hey, watch your mouth when you about favorite player.
Listen, I like Kyrie a lot. I just think that back to the same championship argument. I think the media leverages these expectations on certain players, knowing that just schematically it's not likely. He's he went from Brooklyn to Dallas, where he didn't. I don't know if he wanted to go there or not. No, he never said any reports openly. He could have got traded to LA. Then Brooklyn then traded KD to the Suns, who reportedly, rumor has it, in the preseason was on his short list of teams. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone, just kind of forgot that this guy wanted to join another number one team. And I get it. Sometimes you just want to win because it's probably a lot of pressure to be in that position. I know the money that these guys get is crazy. I think Kyrie's deal this year is something like 36 million to 37 million. I've done some of the math. You got to think about it. They play a 48-minute game. These guys are getting like $82,000 a game. And if you break it down by like minute, seconds, it's just like it's a crazy number to think like they're getting a lot of people's annual salary in a 48-minute game. And I think the media and just that that gall that people just come at these guys with is probably a lot. And I think they probably look, like, you know what? If I win a championship, that's my middle finger to everybody that's clowning on me. That's everybody that's hit me on Twitter if I win a championship because I don't think they care who they play with. Like they can bring Jordan and Barkley back if they can win a championship with him. I don't think anybody would be like, I don't want this guy on my team. If they think you can help him win, you can win. So I think Kyrie going to Dallas, it's a gamble. I don't know if it was a wise gamble by Dallas because don't think you got enough in return to mask what you already didn't do well. So I don't think it's going to end well for them going forward.
Yeah, so looking through a crystal ball, what happens to them in the playoffs, and where does he end up next year?
So if it's like I says, if it holds firm, the matchup of Memphis and Dallas, I want to, I wanted like the same way I gave Sacramento credit for being a top team in their conference. I think if Jai gets back, I think they can gel. I think they could gel enough. Considering, like, I think last year Jai missed like 22 games. They were like 20-2 in those games that he missed. So I think the coach
Mm-hmm.
is doing a good job. I think all of this turmoil happening now in March when you have a lead that you have because they're not fighting for position. They're 5 games up on Phoenix. So even if after suspension and the personality conflicts and then the strip clubs and the flights and all this other stuff that has to go on, I think they have enough time if people are mature enough. I know that the rumor is that they're not really mature in Memphis. If they're mature enough and the coach can get them to galvanize this around, hey, everyone's doubting us, I think they'll take care of Dallas in the first round. And because Kyrie didn't sign a long term deal, if he doesn't average like 28, 8, and 6, it might be a situation where teams are really going to lowball him. Teams like, maybe the Lakers will be in pursuit. Maybe Dallas offers him a 2-year, $62 million deal with an option for a third. Maybe a team like New Orleans tries, see if they can clear up some cap space and bring him in because they don't have any buzz. Maybe Houston tries to do something, just try to get creative because their arena's empty when they play their games. I think it's going to be a situation where he's going to get a big deal because I think the NBA Players Association kind of set it up to where when you're in a certain part of your career, a certain kind of contract, I think people are going to offer him like a big deal, but it won't be long term. I think it'll be a 2-year with a team option for a third around what he's getting now, 36 million, maybe 30, 31, somewhere in that range. Because I don't think a lot of people are going to come running, especially if they go out in the first round, because everyone's going to look at it like, oh, you should have been better for Luka because we like Luka based off the stuff that the media made up. Luka should have got further in the playoffs, but they added you, and he went out in the first round last year. He beat Phoenix and was in the Western Conference Finals, and then you come to the team. They're sub 500 since he's gotten there. Him and Luka playing together at sub 500, and then Memphis, a team that's considered immature and can't get right, and their stars getting suspended, and Dylan Brooks, your favorite player, is out here acting like the light skinned Draymond Green. So it's like if you can't get out of the first round with Luka, it's gonna all fall on him. And I don't know if the Dallas media and fans are gonna want him back, and if he's gonna end up somewhere like, maybe Miami does something crazy where they try to make space for him just to be a draw. But I don't think he ends up on a contender.
All right,
And I like him a lot.
So I wrote down 6 teams. Some
All
of these
right.
probably aren't realistic. I just wrote down some stuff, that came to my mind. So the first team I wrote down, get ready for it. The Knicks, because he
I
was
was
supposed to
thinking
go.
about that.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe the Knicks, because I think we're at the point, depending on how this season finishes up, I think the Knicks have good players, but I don't know if it all mixes to become a contender. Like I'm not sure if Julius Randle and RJ Barrett are like the combination that you need to get over the hump. So
But
I
what
can
do you do with
see
Jalen Brunson?
he comes off the bench as the 6th man.
He's getting paid like
I know
the 6 richest man.
that's true. That's I was thinking, because I've been hearing noise. I don't necessarily believe it, but if James Harden happens to leave Philly, after this season, maybe you could put him in Philly with Embiid. That gives Embiid another scorer that can take some pressure off of him. Doesn't necessarily provide the passing that James Harden does. I don't know if I necessarily like Kyrie and Maxey on the floor at the same time for a lot of minutes, but I think him and Embiid are a good fit together. I was thinking about what we said earlier. I brought up, is this the end for Paul George and Kawhi? Is not. Then, Russ's contract comes off the books. Maybe you bring Kyrie there and you have your mini big 3. That could be a good fit. We'll
Their
see.
owner has disposable cash.
Yep. And then, of course, there's the
He has
Lakers.
real money. Lakers.
And of course, there's the Lakers because, him and LeBron, that old thing back. They've been flirting with each other. Get a room already. We feel the tension, but is pride going to get in the way? I was thinking that depending on how this season ends up, could Denver be an option? Could they split up Jokic and Murray, and have Kyrie go there and take over for Murray? And then the last team that I really, really like you said, I don't know if he's going to end up contender per se, but maybe I like to see him in Chicago. You got Lonzo probably 2 years away from playing again. You got DeMar DeRozan, DeFraud DeFrozen. You got Vucevic.
The
So you
players,
know,
like, it's so funny. It's so funny, like the players that you just like just aren't on your list of faves. And it's funny when it comes out because you don't say Mike doesn't say anything ill about anybody or anything, any situation. But it's like a few players every once in a while he has like one of these Skip Bayless level nicknames for, and it's just when it comes out, it's like because he comes up with
I
a new one like
respect
every
that.
week.
I respect the hell out of DeMar DeRozan. I really do. You know what I mean? But I just, you know, Laker fans definitely like going a little thick when it comes to him. But I like the
Because they
Bulls.
wanted him.
Yeah, they wanted him, so they lie. So like I wanted. So I think the Bulls are a good fit. They got Patrick Beverly right now, but whatever. They've playing a lot better with him. And next year it might come time to move on from Levine as well. So Kyrie and DeRozan, I was gonna say the Wizards, but I don't trust them to do anything. So them out of this. But so those are a couple of teams that I could see Kyrie ending up with. I think I like the Bulls the best. I think I see the Clippers doing it just as a desperation heave at trying to get a title, one last year or two last years or whatever. The Lakers, just because of LeBron and getting that old thing back, his first love, if you will. And then Philly is a crap shot. Like I said, that's just if Harden doesn't come back, because obviously Harden don't necessarily see eye to eye.
Harden in Houston
You,
makes zero sense though.
it makes zero sense. But if
And they're
Philly,
about
for
to get the
whatever
number one
reason,
pick.
well, as of today, is the 2 seed. So everything stays in place. They get home court against the Celtics. If they lose that series, if they lose another series to the Celtics, I could see Harden being like, this ain't what I thought it was, or nobody's coming with the bag. Philly tries to give him a shorter term deal, and somebody else comes through with the extra years. I could see him potentially leaving. It damn sure ain't going to be Houston, and
Yo,
I don't want Kyrie in Houston.
realistically, James Harden is no more impactful than like Zach Levine in Chicago. They just keep putting them on contenders and hoping you're gonna get that Houston James Harden. And it's evident he hit a wall 2 years ago. And him going back to Houston would just be a bad move.
Well, the good news is
I
that
like the
James Harden
teams you
starting out
picked.
as a point guard.
Yeah, but
So
I
you
don't
don't
think
have
it's
to worry
point
about
guard.
that transition. No, I know, but you don't have to worry about that
I
transition.
think
Like
his
with Russ, you
transition
had to
is
worry.
because Russ for some reason just stopped shooting well. It's weird.
Yeah. But I just mean
Like
he
the
had to
game that he
transition to
broke the
come off the bench. And
yeah.
so we
So
didn't
I
know how
think
he was
James
going to
Harden.
react to that.
Yeah, and I think he did a great job. Playing with KD and Kyrie. But even then, he was unhappy, and then went to Philly. It's just that I didn't see Philly as a championship contender after he got there. So I don't know what he saw before he left. It's the same way with Kyrie. Is like I don't know where you can go other than the Lakers on one of these deals that like Golden State was signing when all of those guys were due for money. Like I think Clay got a 4 year deal. I think KD took a two with a player option, and then his second year, then Steph got a four, and then Draymond got like a three in the middle. Like somehow, we talk about the luxury tax and everything else that they have to pay. So unless you can get to LA, the Lakers, on a 3 year deal, like I said, third year being a team or player option for somewhere in the range of what you're getting now, 37 million. Because I'm pretty sure whatever if LA courts him, he's gonna ask for the most he thinks he can get because that means he's getting support from LeBron on the inside. So if LA calls, then that means LeBron has talked to the front office. So he's not going to take a team friendly deal because he knows your team's best player wants me. And I think it would be wise of him to take, like I said, at least get what you're getting now. So I think he's getting like 36 million from his last year with Brooklyn. I think Steve Ballmer with the money will do it because they're about to open a new arena. You got to keep fans engaged because we know how LA sports goes. When USC was rocking, the Clippers didn't have a lot of fans. The USC stadium was packed. The Rams were decent and they still couldn't fill the stadium because the hierarchy of all the other things you have to do in LA. Everything else is entertaining in LA. That's why Portland is always packed. That's why the Jazz games are always packed because there's not much else to do for your outside entertainment. But in LA, everything's entertaining. You have baseball, multiple basketball teams, you got the college football, you got the nightlife, you have the celebrities, you just have the whole ambiance and mystique of Southern California. So you have to be on it. You have to be blockbuster all the time. So Kyrie to the Clippers makes a lot of sense. I don't know how many people you can keep, but I think him and Ty Lue back together, I think that might work out. I do like him with Doc Rivers. I think a strong headed coach is going to work. But if they get beat by Boston, I don't know if Doc Rivers comes back. I
Oh,
think it might be a
I think
situation.
that I think that no matter who they lose to, anything short of the Eastern Conference Finals, I think Doc
He's
is
done.
gone. Yeah, because I mean, like we always you always joke about how the Celtics live off of that one championship,
Oh
and
man, they still having dinner
that
about that. They're gonna have a
that's what,
15.
but
I guarantee you that it's gonna be a picture this June of them popping champagne, celebrating the
But that's
15 years since they
that's
won
his
that.
whole coaching career. He's blown more 3-1s than anybody. But besides that championship year and the time in Boston in general, because they did make a finals after that. Outside of that, he's just been a whole lot of disappointment, high expectations, and just doesn't come through. Not his fault per se always, but
He does have a
expectations are
team. He
always there.
always has a squad that just is
But
well put together,
well, see, I
and
never thought
it comes
that.
up short.
So 2-5. I was the guy that never saw the original Clippers, the CP3, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. I was the one dude that never saw them as a contender. Everybody else was always, this team should be in the finals. This team should win the West or be in the Western Conference Finals. I just didn't see it because Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan were both very limited in what they offered and what they could do. Blake Griffin got a lot better over the years as far as adding a shot. But at the
Yeah,
time that, they were together, he was dunking. Half of the time, it wasn't even a dunk. He was just high in the air and just threw it at the rim. So
that happened a couple
I
times. A lot of those times was dunk. He
yes,
was yamming on people.
so I never saw him as a contender. Like I said, not Doc Rivers' fault, but I think people take what he did in Boston, not realizing what he brought to Boston. The team was so much deeper than the big three they had. They had Posey coming off the bench and Eddie House and Keon Clark was playing well. Had a lot going on, and he was able to
Yeah,
win a
Big
championship.
Baby,
So you can't take that
Rondo.
away from him. You can't take that away from him. You know what I mean? But the rest of his career is a whole lot of
I mean, yeah, I agree with you there, but I,
Glenn
yeah, so
Rivers.
yeah, it's gonna be tough. I mean, he did trade his own son, so you got to admit that the guy there's no nepotism going on. He's like, listen, so you got to get up out of here. I need to get some more pieces in. So the Denver move, Kyrie, at, logistically, I don't see how it makes sense because Jokic handles the ball
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks just paid Jalen Brunson. His dad works for the Knicks. He's not going to the bench, and they're both small guards.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, So Chicago, because I think they would be willing to make a splash. Because, like you said, one of those guys is coming off the books, Levine or DeRozan. Somehow, I think they're going to move them because they should have done it earlier this year. I remember conversations that were probably going around like December time frame. They should have just made the deal to get him to LA, get whatever they could have got out of LA, stockpiles and stuff. Because some teams just don't have the moxie
Mm-hmm.
to recover from going 3-8 in 11 game stretch. It just keeps going downhill. You have
And
all
the
this
Bulls need a
NBA
new
talent,
coach too. The Bulls need
so
a
it's
new
like
coach too.
it just doesn't. Sometimes like you got to recognize like, this is not working. What can we break down? Brooklyn recognized that it wasn't working, and
Mm-hmm.
they're still six in the East. Maybe this sounds ridiculous. Maybe it goes back to Brooklyn. Maybe they have a conversation and they're like, "Hey man, all right, cool. We'll give you 3 years, 99 million or whatever."
I could see that if he didn't post that video.
Yo, the video was not the thing. It's like this. You know a guy and you know he wants to break up with his girl. He's want to break up with her, and she tells him, "Hey, me and the girls are gonna go down to Miami for one of my friends' birthday over this weekend," and he makes a big deal about it, so they just break up. He don't care about that trip to Miami. He just was like, "Listen, I wanted to get rid of her anyway. That was a perfect excuse. You can go down to Miami. You know I don't like this girl. Blah blah blah. blah." And just make a big deal, like I'm sick of this. And then like they break up, and he's like, "Finally, I'm free." They did not care about that video. First of all, Jeff Bezos didn't take it off of Amazon, nor did they suspend him when the whole first thing came out. They didn't do
Yeah.
anything until all the powers that be knocked on their door and gave them an offer they couldn't refuse, and now all of a sudden he's suspended. And I think that's probably part of Kyrie's like issue with him. Like, listen, I told you all of this. It's the same thing when we think about Ray Rice. Ray Rice told the story how it happened, how it appeared on camera in the elevator, and they got 2 games. And then that hotel shut down, and then the security guard or whoever recorded all these videos put them out and sold them to TMZ and these other little tabloid sites to get a little change. And then the story came out like, oh yeah, he did tell us what happened in the elevator. Everything that we saw on camera matched up. And it was like, so why'd you suspend him for longer? And I think that's what happened with Kyrie. He's like, listen, you guys already knew this. We already discussed it. We already talked about how I felt. Whatever he was saying privately, like, listen, I've been doing research on myself. I'm from this part of the world. I'm not anti-Semitic, and they're like, listen, you can't do that. And then they leave the meeting, and now suddenly everyone else gets mad, and they put him in, and then they suspend them, and then they end up trading him. So I think I'm not saying he got a bad rap, but it did take a long time for him to all of a sudden get suspended for 5 to 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right, one more team that I just thought about. So Miami, because it's about time for them to come off of Kyle Lowry. But I was thinking about Toronto, maybe. Put them up there with Siakam. But it goes back to your point about Jokic. Scotty Barnes is such a big part of the ball handling up there. I don't know if it works in that way, but Kyrie is a good shooter, so it's not like putting Russ off the ball where you don't know what's going to happen. So I mean, there's the possibilities are endless. But I mean, out of the teams
yeah,
that we did mention, I think I like Chicago the best.
you like Chicago. I think realistically, because like I said, rumor. I'm not sure exactly what he said out loud, but if he wants a max deal or a max type of deal or a max money deal, it's the Lakers or he stays in Dallas. Because I don't think either one
Mm-hmm.
of us said Dallas is one of the possible teams. So if he wants the max deal, obviously you have to stay in Dallas, and because the team that has you can offer you a bigger deal. And if you want a huge deal in free agency, leaving Dallas, I think it's the Lakers because he has an advocate in
Mm-hmm.
the boardroom already in LeBron James.
Well, the
So
good
even
news
if
for
LeBron only
Dallas,
has 1 or 2 more years, he still can advocate for him.
is that Kyrie didn't say that he'll come back if they'll have him.
He didn't say that.
No, he didn't say, because that's what he said. Boston when he became a Celtic, like I'm coming back as long as they have me. He ain't say that yet, so he might stay because he kind of zigged when everybody's that maybe Kyrie is the real 2-5.
Yo, Kyrie is the ultimate 2-5, and I respect it. Uh, so
I
I
would
mean,
like for him to explain flat Earth to me, though. I find that so entertaining.
yeah, you don't want to hear that. I had a couple of those conversations. It's a,
You
it's a,
talk about a rabbit hole. I start reading. I don't believe in flat Earth. But you get me starting to read about that stuff, man. It's the rabbit hole of all rabbit holes, But
It's
what is not a
pure
rabbit
chaos.
hole, what is not a rabbit hole is Lonzo Ball's knee. So we're gonna get somber in it because I feel sad for the guy. He came out of college from UCLA with a lot of hype. It didn't work out year one. People gave up on, but then he started getting better. He took some leaps and bounds before he got injured, and I just don't know. Like I'm almost at a point where I don't even know if he's ever going to play again.
If you have had this many knee surgeries in 2019, 2021, like in this heightened medical arthroscopic surgery, laser surgery, robots doing surgery, taking a ligament out of your elbow and putting it in your kneecap, and then taking one out of your toe and putting it in your neck. They can do all this stuff. If you're having this many surgeries and your knee is still not right, and they're expecting you to not play next year, like you're not expected to play until October 2024, and we in March 2023, and you haven't played 2022 or 2023, is like, what do you need? Do you need a knee replacement at, what is he, 25? If
But
that?
it's wild because initially he said when he first got injured, they said it was a small meniscus tear. And I'm like, no, he tore that whole damn thing, apparently.
But even with that, I mean, granted, this is a different injury, but Adrian Peterson tore his whole ACL, MCL, and PCL, had surgery January 1st, and then won the MVP in football the following season, started week one. So it's like, what's going on with your knee? Granted, I don't want to get into this man's medical business, but it's like, are you done? Like, is your career, is it really over? Is it, honestly, is it worth even trying to come back? Is it are the injury clauses in your contract allowing you to stay optimistic, where you still have a team to come back to? Are you still getting paid? Like, how much you getting paid? Is like,
Right.
is it worth going through, another surgery? And if you're not playing until 2024, I only imagine that your rehab has to be, what, 9 months? Like, if the expectation is that you're not going to be ready in 7 months from now if you have this surgery, and you're not going to be ready at all for the remainder of the season. So for next in 7 months, you're not going to be ready. You got a whole 5 extra months before the season ends. You're not going to be ready for the end of next season.
Right.
Is like, is it time to say, yo, this ain't for me? And LeVar Ball did an outstanding job. Him and Tina, raising three boys in the limelight that they've been in, because they've probably been, I'm gonna say, what, 20, when you first really heard of them, 2016, 2017, somewhere in that time frame, about
Somewhere
6, 7
around
years
that. Yeah.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Lonzo Ball's been, Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and he's the young gun, but he hasn't had any real significant off the court issues.
Yeah. They had a
Like,
TV
we've
show on
seen,
Facebook.
had a TV show on Facebook. How much money is that? I mean, Facebook has 4 billion like profiles. So you have a show on that. That's, I mean, you're getting paid, and they're in the limelight. And then Lonzo, like Lonzo, Mello, they had like this, Jello got in trouble in China, and it seemed like they just, like, that the foundation of their family, like, I mean, ironically, it's the ball, they just bounced back. But for him to be in this position where, he fixed the jump shot, you could tell he works. You can tell at his core he's a worker. You could tell that the way his family is structured, you could tell that they are a resilient group of people. His mother's health issues, you can just tell, like, just intrinsically, that LeVar is a personality, and we need more personalities like him. And that's why I wish Lonzo and Jello and all of them and LaMelo were all in the league, because, I mean, he was just great to be on. He was great on TV, great on TV.
How
And
much they selling shoes for nowadays?
yo, it was genius. That marketing strategy was genius.
You know
He
what makes
didn't
me
pay
mad?
for a commercial. He didn't pay for a single commercial. ESPN, Fox Sports 1, CNN, everybody was like, "Oh, you got this
You,
guy here thinks he can sell shoes for $500." Didn't
you
pay for a commercial.
you know what makes me mad though? All I hear is people telling all the time, we got to keep the money in our community. We got to do this. We got to do that. We can't rely on other people. And then everybody said, well, why he turned down Nike? Why he gonna turn down Adidas? Because he's trying to do what you said you wanted.
Yo, like I don't think people understand. Like D Wade signed his leaning shoe deal. I can't even pronounce it. And I've never purchased a pair of those shoes, but like you can probably get them now. They're a reasonable basketball price. I think they're like $130 or less for most of his basketball shoes, which is standard. Like if Nike around like 160, 170 for like shoes you just want to hoop in. You might even be able to get them mostly for 100. But he signed like a deal because they were like an emerging company, and if it blows up, it could be worth like something like $500 million. So LeVar Ball is trying to do that same thing because Nike started out competing with Puma and Adidas and Kangaroos and Converse and
Converse.
everybody else. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you got to start somewhere. And I think what he did there is just like I said, even with that, everybody was against him. He still went on TV. He took the shots. He was at the draft wearing the Lakers gold hat. Like I talked to it. He's like, I've been knowing this was gonna happen. My son was gonna be number two. My other son's coming up, and my youngest son's the best of all three of them. I mean, it was the Muhammad Ali level, just bravado mixed with
Yeah.
real hard work. It
And then
was real
Christine
hard work.
Leahy tried to take him down.
Yeah, she was like, I don't want to repeat it because he did his thing. Like it just is like just collectively you could tell that the resolve within that household, it resonates on the court. So it's sad that I like Lonzo. I like the fact that he changed his shot, he worked on it, he was well played well at it. You add, he was a skinny kid coming out of high school and out of UCLA. You put a little weight on the way the NBA plays now at that height, 6'7", 6'8". So I just think that
Yeah.
it's a
He's
sad turn
perfect
of
for this
events.
era. He's perfect for
You
this
know,
era. And coming out of college, being a Kentucky fan, that was the thing. Him or De'Aaron Fox. That was the conversation. And they
yeah,
had played each twice that year, and it was must see TV, and even though the Lakers took Lonzo ahead of De'Aaron, I would have took De'Aaron, but Lonzo definitely has shown, like you said, with his hard work and dedication, that he could have fulfilled a lot of the hype that he was given. Like, I don't know, Magic was talking about his name was going to be in the raft. I don't
being
know
the
if we would have ever
Raptors.
got there.
I don't know
Yeah,
why you
see
got
what
to
I'm
like.
saying?
I think he was trying
Rhetoric,
to match.
rhetoric.
He was trying to match Levar because Magic is the show, and Levar was
Right,
going to
right.
take over the show. So I think he
So
was trying to match that.
so Lonzo had the first surgery on January 28th of last year. So January 28th, 2022, that's when the first surgery went down. And then, he was having some issues. And then before training camp started for this season that we're in now, that's when it was announced that he was going to get some arthroscopic surgery, and it was supposed to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. And now it's been 4 to 6 months, and we're getting reports that he can't run or jump. He's on the Byron Jones. So that's where it's scary, like because Brandon Roy, the question is Lonzo the next Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy, we saw him reach his peak, and that it sucked because we saw, I'd say 80% of the finished product. Whereas
Yeah,
Lonzo was just he was starting to begin. And like for example, when he played with the Bulls, the record with him was 22-13. And then when he left, their record was 24-23. He came into the league shooting 20% or so from three. And that time with Chicago, he was a 42% three-point shooter. He was top 6 or 7 in the league in three-point percentage, after
yeah,
everybody wrote him off. So that's why it's hard, going back to your point here about grinders and how people look at their athletes and want them to resonate and be a part of them. Long had that, and I think that it's the gift and the curse, right? Because if LeVar wasn't there, I think more people would have gravitated towards Lonzo, like versus him being that polarizing figure. And it wasn't even him; it was just his dad. But by extension, people looked at him in a polarizing way. I think that without LeVar, even people would have, but I don't know if he would have got that same work ethic without LeVar. So that's the gift and the curse. So, it just makes that, man. It takes me back to Penny. It takes me back to Grant Hill. These injuries just have a way of taking things away from us before we get to see them. Derrick Rose, we don't get to see these things in
Yeah,
their full bloom. And, Lonzo Ball is just the next other long list. Greg Oden, we can keep going. Like, there's just names that we've seen throughout
yeah,
history that we just never got to reach their full potential. So I'm pulling for Lonzo. Like there was a time, and I know it's different. I know it's different, but there was a time where we thought we would never see Markel Fultz again, or that he wasn't gonna turn into something, and he's starting to come together
yo, that
now.
was a grind because he was doing a thing with the free throws. He was like tapping the ball back and forth before he shot it. Remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
It was like it was getting like lane violations on people because he would come up and then
Well,
shoot him.
see,
Like,
that's why I'm
what
hopeful because
happened?
Lonzo. That's why I'm hopeful because Lonzo wasn't explosive in that Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook way. Being 6'7", 6'8", if he is able to come back one day, that he's perfect for this era. He could be your three now. He doesn't have to be the point guard, and you could just rotate
And if
him
he is
on
a
people.
point guard, he can play a lot like a big guard, like a Chauncey Billups, or he can play like Penny because Penny, yeah, Penny was explosive. Same thing like Grant Hill and these guys, these 6'7", these new wave of players. Because he won't be Tatum.
Right.
Healthy, maybe a little bit of weight. I think Tatum's a little bigger as far as like I think he's
But
a
will
little
he
bit
be
more
better than
solid.
Jalen Brown?
Listen, I'm not trying to pin those boys against each other. I hope they stay. I hope they stay together like Jordan and Pippen, and just don't let people, the outside people, come in and interrupt what they got going on. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's sad with Lonzo. Like, okay, he's been in the league 5 years. That's 410 games. He only played 252, and you might as well add another. The rest of this season, 12, 14 games, and then the additional 82 games on top of that. So it's like like only half the game that he can play over a 5 or 6 seasons when he had
And
promise to the
I'm
point where
holding
like they're
out
trying to
hope.
keep him around.
I'm holding out hope because Grant Hill was able to come back and make a decent career out of it. Like he never obviously reached the heights that he had in his early years, but he became a productive player on a contender.
Yeah,
You
yeah, the
you know,
Phoenix.
and
Yeah,
I think right now that's the best case scenario for Long. Like I just want the dude to get better. If he can't play again, fine. But I would love the dude to be able to run again or jump again or do normal things that we take for granted. So that's first and foremost. But as a basketball fan, I would love to see him back on the court, and I would love whatever that role is. I wasn't necessarily a Lonzo Ball fan coming out of college or whatever, but at this stage, I guess I consider myself to be a Lonzo Ball fan because I'm rooting for him.
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, the work ethic, man. Tough guy, tough kid. I'm rooting for his brother. I don't know what they're doing down in Charlotte. I'm rooting for his other brother to get a shot at the league because there's a lot of guys out here getting minutes. I'm like, I'm pretty
Yo,
sure Jello could do that.
yo, first of all, while Houston is out here with Tate and Kenyon Martin Jr. walking around, saying bring in Jello that could shoot the ball. The Pistons, you're at the bottom of the league. Bring in Jello Ball. Like these teams at the Spurs, like y'all out here losing 30-point games. You can lose point games with Jello.
Yeah, and then people say, "Oh, you don't want to deal with, the dad." I'm like, "You mean so the dad that raised 3 NBA players, successful businessman before his kids? Like, it's one thing like if his kids got to the NBA and he took their NBA money and it became a successful businessman. He was a successful businessman when his kids were still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a little run with the Carolina Panthers. build a strong family. And it was like, oh, we don't want to deal with the dad. The dad gave you 3 stars with the dad and the mom. Shout out to D1 moms out there giving, making these big light skinned kids. But it's
Yo,
like it gave you
LaMelo is
stars.
legit. LaMelo is legit. Like there were people literally saying that Golden State should him for James Wiseman,
They
and
told
and
him they
now
were going to take him.
and now Wiseman is where now. Granted, he's been on
Basketball
double. He's been
Siberia.
Yeah, he's been getting some double doubles now that he's in Detroit. You know what I mean? But there was talk where it was like, will the Warriors actually draft LaMelo Ball? And now I feel bad because I would have liked to see what that looked like.
It would have
Because
been
Jordan Poole,
crazy.
yeah, because like I said, Jordan Poole to me has regressed this year. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't have the same outlook on him that I had even just a year ago. So I would have
I
loved
think
to
the
have seen
outlook's the
LaMelo
same.
step up.
I think the team dynamic may factor into that. But I think if you had, I mean, imagine being able to sit Steph from 3 minutes left in the first to like 6 minutes left in the second every week, and you just give the ball to Clay, Melo, Jordan Poole, or Clay. All right, Clay, you're gonna play back to backs, but we're gonna give you 30 minutes one game, 27 the next, and you still winning because you have another guy. Imagine what he could have learned from Steph and Clay. I mean, it's just
You know
I think
what?
it's a
You know what?
bad move for them to take a big man that especially when they don't use a big man to score.
You
So
know what? Portland, great for LaMelo Ball.
I mean, once Jordan leaves, it's gonna be once he sells, gets his 1.7 billion in slides, it's gonna be a fire sale. I think the next
Mm-hmm.
person coming in either they're gonna try to buy up a free agent because he's probably gonna
Yep.
sell to some tech guy because I think the Phoenix got sold to some tech money guy. I think he's in like his 40s or something like that. Some
So
crypto
so so
money
from
guy, something like that.
so from your vantage point, are we going to see Lonzo on the NBA court again?
Yo, I can't I can't imagine so if they're expecting him not to play next year right now. Like I don't know with one injury. We saw Clay tear the ACL, rehab, and then tear the Achilles on the other leg. And he didn't play for a couple of years. And I remember I saw like a Twitter picture of him. Either he was sitting on the bench the night before I think he was gonna play like the next day, and he just was sitting there by himself. There was no fans there, and it was some crazy number like 800 days or nine. It was some crazy high number from the last time he played an NBA game after the 2 injuries. But that was one injury, rehab or surgery, rehab, and then a new one. With Lonzo, it seems like is a progressive problem with the same thing that they can't fix. So it seems hard to think that he's going to be able to come back, considering that he should have come back at least once from one of these surgeries, from one of these procedures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was having the issues while he was playing. So it wasn't like he had an injury like Derrick Rose tore his ACL on that drive to the basket, and it was like okay, everything's downhill from there. Lonzo was having games where he wasn't playing in LA before they even got traded. So he's had this problem since he joined the league with
Well,
his
I can't
knees.
wait for this. I can't wait for the 30 for 30, if nothing else.
Oh, it's gonna be great. The behind the scenes footage,
Yes,
it's gonna be
but
fantastic.
yeah, like I said, I hope he does make it back if it's just as a role player playing small forward that isn't running the point anymore. Like I would just like to see the dude on the court, period, because I mean he like you said, he's a hard worker. He's obviously skilled and gifted. So, we've seen so many players, man. That's the thing that's bothering me about it. And he's so young. Like it'd be different if he was 28 and we had already seen him at his best, like Brandon Roy or something. Like we
Yeah,
knew what Brandon Roy was gonna be. Brandon Roy was on his way and it just got snatched from us. But we saw we saw the flashes. We knew what was coming. Whereas
Yo,
Lonzo,
Greg
we didn't
Oden
even
at
get to reach
Ohio
that point.
State. Greg, the same thing with Greg Oden at Ohio State. I mean, it was just like, granted, it was college, but he just looked so fluid. He looked like new Shaq. He looked like he was gonna be as dominant as Shaq, and it just puff gone.
Just over.
I
I mean,
think
they
people,
took him over Kevin Durant. Like, can you imagine being Portland taking Oden over Kevin Durant, and then you did the whole Sam Bowie over Jordan thing?
Sam
Like,
Booth.
whew, Kentucky,
Back then,
but
credit to at that time Jordan being a guard. It that wasn't the move. That's like taking a big man number one overall right now. Taking a guard one, two, or three, a smaller guard like Jordan, it wasn't the move. Like if somebody right now took the big center out of Purdue, number one overall next year, you're like, but Wimbyama,
hey,
he's a wing. He's stretching. I don't know if he's a 4 or 5, a 3 at 7'4",
oh
whatever the
hey,
case may
the
be.
mock draft. Speaking of which, the last mock draft that I saw had that dude within the last 12 to 15 picks draft. And after getting sunned by a bunch of 6'3" dudes, I'm not sure he's going to get drafted at all.
Yeah, listen. Sometimes,
I
like I
mean, you
wanted
got
to
to
be
take it.
tall. That was my life goal. Like I just wanted to be tall.
I mean,
Uh,
he better than
Now
Taco
being in
Fall. So
ABA, yo, Taco Fall was a fan favorite. I don't know how he didn't get any run in the league. He was people loved him. It's like
I
how you have a
know.
7'6" guy on the bench. It's like you gotta get a rebound. Like nah, like
I mean,
he's
I
a
saw
defensive
George
liability.
Merson and Sean Bradley play in the NBA. Zach Edey got to get a shot at least.
You would think. You would think.
But yeah. So at that point, Lonzo, I'm for you, man. Like I hope to see you on this court again, man. We miss you.
Yo, it's a tough run, man. Like, but hopefully he comes back strong. Speaking of strong, Mike, you always got something strong get off your chest. So I got our Twitter and Instagram handles up here now. So when Mike fires off, you guys can fire off at him. So let's hear it, Mike. What you got to get off your chest?
So this one is actually kind of tame because I'm just happy today. Um, because the madness is here. So we already saw Purdue, become the second one seed to go down to a 16 seed. And all weekend on these videos, I've been referring to this man as Curtis Painter, knowing that his name is Matt Painter. But I'm gonna get back to him. So today, Georgetown hired Ed Cooley from Providence. I told you how I don't like that just because he went to a conference like that, but it was a good pickup. The only thing I ask is Georgetown bring back the Iverson Grays. On the other end, St. John's, brought in Rick Pitino. So, he's back in the Big East, bring back the Bootsy Thornton uniforms. And then somebody please do me a favor and bring UMass back, the University of Dr. J and Marcus Camby. Can somebody bring them back? But on a sad note, real quick, before I get into Curtis, or I'm sorry, see, there it is again. Before I get into
Yeah.
Matt Painter, St. Francis University of Brooklyn, of the Northeastern Conference, decided to shut down their Division I athletics today. So they're going away. So that's one less team that we'll have in Division I. So one less chance of a Cinderella. So that makes me sad. But Matt Painter, okay. So Virginia has been the talk of the sports world for a couple of days from the standpoint of they were the first 1 seed to lose to a 16. And then they lost as a 4 seed, to Ohio and to Furman this past week. And everybody has been giving Tony Bennett all this crap. Is he really a great coach? Is he a regular coach? Last I checked, Tony Bennett won a national title in between all that. So you
Correct.
can't take that away from him. You cannot take that away from him. Matt Painter, on the other hand, let's do some examining. So I'm looking at Matt Painter here, and not only did he lose to Fairleigh Dickinson the other day as a 1 seed Jersey stand up, last year he lost as a 15 seed, or sorry, to the 15 seed in the Sweet 16, which was St. Peter's of New Jersey, Jersey stand
Shout out
up.
Jersey, we in the building. You're
And then in 2021, he was a 4 seed and lost in the first round to 15 seed Texas. The only difference here is that he don't have the national title. So maybe he's the regular season coach that you accuse Tony Bennett of being. But not only that, Matt Painter has now joined Lute Olson of Arizona fame and Tony Bennett as the only coaches to lose 3 NCAA tournament games to teams seeded 13th or lower. But wait, there's more.
some more.
Out of those 3, and this one from Chris Felica, you know him as the Bear, formerly of College Game Day, now over at Fox Sports. I got this one from him on Twitter. But he's the only one that lost to a 13 or lower seed in consecutive tournaments. So, unfortunately for you, Maynard, you don't have the title that Tony Bennett and Lute Olson has. So I don't understand why Tony Bennett is getting. I mean, you got to criticize because it is what it is, but you're the one that should maybe lose your job. I don't like to call for people to lose their job. I'm just saying it is what it is. You know, you can't have that type of stain on your record and still be allowed. Or, I mean, change up your recruiting philosophy or something. You know, maybe y'all should have took a chance on Imani Bates. I don't know. But Matt Painter, I'm sorry, but you're the weakest link. Goodbye. That's to get off my chest.
Told you, man, Mike. No ill wills, but like every once in a while, you just be on one. Just like, coaches that don't succeed in the postseason. That's one of his pet peeves. So, might get off my chest. It's rather simple. Like we talked about this before, and I have a coworker who's a Ravens fan, and we talk about the Lamar Jackson contract and all the other contracts have been getting handed out. NFLPA. The next time you guys sit down and collectively bargain, you need to figure out what you guys going to do. So you got these guys out here signing 1 year deals for $3 million. Not a lot of protection there, not a lot of future benefits, but everyone's doing it because these teams are structuring these deals. It's like, okay, I'm gonna give you 3 years, 24 million, but only 17 guaranteed. It was like, well, I'll just take the 1 year, 8 million, because that's basically what you're giving me because the deal is going to be structured a la what they did to Derek Carr. You can sign this extension, but we're going to cut you before the extension kicks in and we don't have to pay you. Meanwhile, you have guys, divas like Aaron Rodgers getting $59 million, and he was a headache before his contract got signed. So you got to start putting these provisions, permissions, so like these players can get real money, get these guaranteed contracts. That way you don't have guys out here risking an injury and they have like injury guarantees and all this crazy verbiage. Get these guys paid, get them their money. You want this product, you want $1 billion a week as an owner to split up between the 32 of you, then pay the guys who are out there risking their bodies to play. Pay the guys who are due their money. Like if someone's due and they performed and get their money, give them their money, pay them that check, and move on because you're ruining the team dynamic in a very tough sport where you have a real opportunity as a team to go from first to worst and worst to first. So if you sit there and play this game where like, oh well, Lamar Jackson doesn't deserve this money, but did he deserve the money when he's out there MVP on a rookie deal? When he was, out there on a rookie deal, winning MVP, did he deserve his money then because he was getting less money? Did he deserve his money last year when he was only getting 23 million? But now all of a sudden, him getting 40 million a year, he's not worth it. But you got a guy doing ayahuasca in the dark tent getting 59 million. who doesn't have that much more playoff success than Lamar Jackson does. And then you have you got Danny Dimes getting 40 million a year. Meanwhile, his numbers dipped when Saquon was in the lineup, but yet you only give Saquon 10. At some point, either within the players, they got to start saying, "Listen, man, I'm not taking this check unless you look out for everybody. No, I'm not taking a pay cut. I want my 40 million, but you got to get this guy his 12 or his 13 or his 14. You got to re-sign this guy." Players have to really use their leverage because right now it seems like everyone just out for themselves and they're just taking these deals. I mean, poor like granted, your performance is based on how you get paid. But Baker Mayfield was set to probably get a fifth year option, $30 million last year. Now he's about to play for like 6.3. And then you want guys to, come in and shape and be ready to go and be professional. But meanwhile, you can't negotiate professionally. You negotiate like like you're dangling something over them. And then you wonder why guys hold out. And then when they hold out, you find them. So you don't pay me, and then I hold out. Guess my only real leverage is to not show up and use my body for your entertainment, or not use my body to make your team better. And you find me 50, $60,000 a day when I don't show up. So NFLPA, get it together, get with the baseball PA, figure out how they did it, figure out what their argument was, get some of their lawyers on your team, cross pollinate your intelligence so you guys can get real contracts that are guaranteed because we know they're turning profit every year. Roger Goodell's getting an extension every single time it's due. So he's getting his extension every time it's due. Lamar should get his, just like Paris Campbell, who signed a 1 year, $3 million deal to play with the Giants. He should be able to say for 2 years, family, we're going to live here for $8 million. Odell Beckham Jr. still doesn't have a deal. It's like people should be able. You're going to use them and their talent to bolster your bank accounts and your net worth. Show the respect and pay them and give them their money. So, with that being
Boom.
said, I got that off my chest. We gonna have a lot of contract conversations because Lamar's probably not gonna get signed. It's gonna pop up probably every week. Like I said, we try to keep it fresh with the topics, but every once in a while, like you read through the stuff and you hear it, and then you even read what Lamar tweeted out. He was like, "Oh yeah, I turned down 200 million. How about 3 years, 133 guaranteed?" He's like, "Let's be realistic here. Like, let's get the facts out here." And obviously, you can see this Lamar Jackson situation should be the galvanizing piece for the players. It's like, wait, you're not going to pay that guy. Everyone said you pay the quarterback. Everyone says you pay the MVP. Everyone says you pay the guy that is 75% of the reason why people are in seats. It's a lot of eight jerseys in those stands. It's a lot of eight jerseys coming off the shelf. There's not a lot of them sitting on the internet waiting to be bought. It's a lot of sold out sizes of eight with Jackson on the back. So cut that man his check and put your team in a position where you can win. So
So speaking of Jacksons, you don't treat Mike like Tito.
I
That's basically what
mean,
it boils
yo,
down to.
talent versus tolerance. How much you think he's gonna tolerate of this? Somebody's gonna want him. They think that initial, oh, we're not gonna pursue Lamar. Okay, listen, I'm a Falcons fan. I saw what Desmond Ritter did. It took him like 3 games to get a touchdown pass, and it wasn't even a real pass. He just rolled left, a roll right, and floated the ball up to the tight end, and it looked like he sneezed the ball out of his hand. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure how much he has. So we
do
got a
I do I
first
want
round
to
pick.
do I want to set up Eric Bieniemy the wrong way with the fifth round draft pick?
I mean, it's not that far. He don't have to move.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
You just take a
saying
helicopter right in the Landover.
Magic. Hey Magic. Hey Magic. I heard Magic Johnson's trying to join up with the new ownership. Magic, make it happen. Make it happen.
I mean, he has a way of getting stars to his teams.
You know what
But
I'm saying?
yeah.
Put it on the t-shirt, underdog. You know what I'm
With that being
saying?
said, I got off my chest. We're gonna wrap up another fun episode here. Mike, you can see our Twitter handles and Instagrams on the screen. Mike, you want to give any shout outs?
Yo, shout out to you, the public, for supporting us. Shout out to podbay.fm for letting me advertise on there the day. Shout out to StreamYard, for letting us do this and giving us this beautiful setup so you can get a better, clearer picture of our beautiful smiles. Saying thank you to the Wiz, Lindsay Faye, for allowing me the time to do this, because I know it takes away from family time and everything, but she knows how much it means to me. So, thank you for allowing me to do this, and then, thank you, Raph, for bringing the heat, saying, and keeping me accountable and on my toes. I just want to thank the world. I'm so happy right now.
Hey, shout out to Mike. Like I said, yo, Mike does so much behind the scenes. Every day I'm getting messages. He's doing the count. So I was like, yo, let's expand on this to see how far we can go. Like I said, two vets, no gimmicks. A couple of retired guys like to talk sports, like to keep it authentic. Like I said, we're still new to this. It's flowing. Like I said, we got this new opportunity here with StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter, Fear My Wrath. Instagram, Sports Reports is order. You see the underscores. Email, sportsreportsao@gmail.com. Anywhere you want it, we're going to start streaming live to where we're right on your Facebook. We'll have people in the comment section. Listen, everybody always says, yo, we about to do it real big, and they never do. Everybody has something big inside of them. We're trying to let ours out. We're trying to get connected with more people. We're trying to reach out to the guys in the sports groups and reach out with their groups. More topics, more arguments, more debates, more hypotheticals, more contract talk, more Kyrie talk. More. We haven't even done a Lakers segment yet. The world is our oyster because sports are happening every day. Soon as baseball figures out what they're gonna do, we can start talking about them more. So we got it all. Like I said, we appreciate everybody that's been there every step of the way, and just keep riding with us, and we appreciate it.
Rate us, like us, review us, check out the YouTube Sports Reports is order. It's all free. It don't cost you anything to click like. It doesn't cost you anything to leave a review. Just keep it real. That's all we ask. We're going to keep it real with you. And we love you, America.
Out.
Out.